Hey yo, welcome back. Happy Thursday. Assalamu alaikum. All praise be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Today we are going to continue the Jinn series. So that's by the Merciful Servant YouTube channel. And the title of today's video is The Powers of the Jinn Throne of Sheba. These are not labeled by numbers as far as, part 1, part 2, but we're just picking up right where we left off from the last video from this series. And it looks like I said a lot of these videos are quite short, so we'll probably run these 3 videos today back to back, and we'll just see what happens. So let's get into it and see what we can learn.
The jinn have a very unique power, which is truly bizarre, and physicists who are Muslims should really marvel at this. From the story of Sulaiman and Sheba, and that is the power to transform matter into energy and back into matter again. And that's something that we are trying to figure out how to do. E equals mc squared. Energy and matter are related, we know this. And the jinn have the power to do this. How do we know this? The throne of Bilqis, or the queen of Sheba, the throne that from Yemen to Jerusalem. قال عفريت من الجن. Now, jinns, there are many levels, and ifrit are the most evil and the most powerful. Ifrit are what Western literature calls demons of the jinn. These are the worst of the worst. So the ifrit said, I can bring you the throne before you even stand up. Which makes total sense, physically speaking, from physics I mean. If the jinn can go and come back at the speed of light, and this one jinn is so powerful, now again this is my 2 cents, it is as if Allah is saying this is the max that any jinn can possibly do. Because Sulaiman had control over all the jinns, and one of them said, just one, which means the rest, they don't have that power, right? So we need to put things into perspective, that the jinns are not all of them so powerful. One only said that he can do this. That was the strongest and the best. So therefore we need to understand that what is the strength of the strongest jinn that maybe we have ever seen. He can pick up the throne of Sheba. Okay, in these days a crane can do that. I'm just saying, right? It's not as if the jinn can pick a star up or the moon. It's a physical strength that we can understand. And what was supernatural for us was what? Is that to transport it. And it is well known that this throne is going to be inside the palace, that if he were to take the throne, it would not be flying in the air. People are not going to see it flying. Rather, it would disappear there and appear in front of Sulaiman, which means what? E equals mc squared here, right? Einstein was probably right in this regard. And this is what we believe, if we believe in the story, that it is possible somehow the jinn have the power to take matter, transform it to energy, take it all the way back, and then reproduce it, right? And by the way, this is something that is well known, mutawatir, from the stories and whatnot, that it is possible for a magician to just produce an item that was lost, literally, and he goes, here it is, right? So what are some of the physical characteristics of the jinn? What are the jinn made of? What type of fire? Smokeless fire. So if they're a type of energy, how fast can they go? Quite literally, the speed of light. Quite literally, they travel at the speed of light, right? If they're energy, then do physical structures block them? No. Just like my phone is working right now and we're inside the room, right? Just like radio waves, just like other waves are coming into this room, and the physical structure has nothing to do with them. They're made out of smokeless fire, so this makes them invisible to us, right? They have the capacity to transfer from one energy to another, so they can become physical, and they can be seen to us when they want to. So how do they do that? In our modern vernacular, they'll simply shift into the color spectrum of light waves. What is the only energy that we can see, I should say? It's a very small window, the colors of the spectrum, right? So the jinn have the capacity to just move their energy into that level, if you like, and they can then appear to us. They have the capacity to project their voice so that we can hear the energy of the sound, but it's all energy. So they are invisible And Allah says in the Quran, إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُم. Iblis and his tribe can see you from places you cannot see them. So in this regard, they have the upper hand. They can see you and you cannot see them. They can make their presence known to you. You don't have any clue where they are or not.
Okay, yeah, that was a good one. 5 minutes there. My brain was going all over the place, and as he was describing the movement of the jinn, it was making me think, I never got too big into the superhero movies, but I have seen some of them, and it was one of the superheroes, but they could, like, you know, be in one room and then, like, just in like a flash, they're already in the next room, but not like because they're moving fast per se, but because they're, I guess, returning to energy and then, you know, appearing as matter at whatever destination they chose to go to. And yeah, to me, that scientifically, it does make sense. Obviously, I'm not like some super genius scientist, but it makes sense, like the theory of the way that he is explaining that, you know. And I've been thinking about jinn a lot, you know, and jinn possession. And I'm not going to use any names, but for example, though, if you just look at the United States government, I mean, there's thousands of people that you could pick from, but some of the more prominent figures, sometimes I wonder, you know, because they'll be blatantly lying, like it's they're, you know, they're lying because all the evidence is there that they're 100% lying, but somehow they just keep talking about it, you know, as if they're telling the truth and there's no consequences of any kind. And then other people just start repeating what they say, you know, like people would call those sheep, I guess. And it's like you're just watching evil unfold in front of you and like nothing is being done about it. It appears that, you know, no one can do anything about it. And it's just wild. It's just a crazy thing. And then the last thing I wanted to touch on was, I kind of think what he was alluding to there is, and I know it was just his opinion, but like the full strength of a jinn, like for example, the one that was able to move the throne of Sheba and to do it so quickly like that, is obviously that's a super impressive feat, you know, by any human standard. You know, a human would not be able to do that. We're not designed that way. But kind of showing you to a degree the limit, like they can't just lift up, you know, a planet or something or a star and move it. And so far, my basic understanding is, you know, like if you're a Muslim, if you love Allah Azza wa Jal and you obey Him, there's no reason for you to fear jinn. You know what I mean? Like it seems like they would, if you're praying and your home is clean, especially, you know, your bathroom where you keep the trash and all those things, that they're probably not really going to mess with you. You know, I mean, that may not always be the case. You know, Allah Azza wa Jal knows best. But I don't know, like I don't feel myself a fear of like demon spirits, jinn, because I don't get down like that. I'm not with them. I'm not on their team. You know what I mean? And my boss is the greatest of all time. You know, the creator of all things, the all knowing. So it's like I'm on the correct team. You know what I mean? That's how my mentality is on that. But yeah, okay, let's go ahead and get into the next video in the series. Okay, we're still in the Jinn series, and the title of this one is Fear.
The Arab tribes who lived just before the coming of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When those Arab tribes would send an army to conquer another town, they would enter into various valleys and climb various mountains. Whenever they would descend into a valley, the Prophet ﷺ told us the jinn in the valley would flee. And that's normal. It's a normal reaction of a lot of animals, right? You know, just generally, you know, if you come across a big army, even human beings, you come across, you know, you're sat sort of in your little tent camping somewhere out in the, you know, the park, and a huge army of people, heavily armed, you know, sort of storming their way towards your tent, you're likely to get up and run. And that is the reaction of the jinn. However, what did these tribes used to do? They would settle themselves and camp in the base of the valley. And then they would raise up their hands and they would start to call and supplicate to the jinn. And this is something that is almost universally accepted in every culture, that there have been people in every culture, in every religion, who have worshipped the spirits, the jinn, the dead, whatever you want to call it. They have worshipped the jinn. So we see that throughout many cultures, and there are as many examples of this in Christianity and Judaism and Hinduism and Buddhism, of people who sought help and sought to call upon the spirits, call upon the jinn. So what used to happen when those jinn who had fled from the oncoming army used to hear the people calling upon them and supplicating to them and asking them for help, then they would realize that these people had a fear of them. And once they sensed that fear in you, they would attack. And what would happen is those people would be increased in their supplication, because they would think, oh, these are really great spirits, powerful beings that can do so much to us. In reality, they were running away, but when they showed a fear of them, they drew them back. And this is a very, very important point. The jinn have certain...
Okay, yeah, so I guess, yeah, to some degree that was in line with what my opinion was, is that, you know, if you're worshiping Allah Azza wa Jal, praying, you know, living a clean lifestyle, and you love Allah, you know, I mean, there's, in my opinion, there would be nothing for you to worry about. But I could see, you know, especially mentally, especially perhaps if someone had OCD or something and they could not stop thinking about jinn, or a jinn trying to attack them or possess them, that could increase the likelihood of that feeling, you know, of something happening. And then also simultaneously it's showing that fear that the jinn can sense, and they could, you know, potentially start to I don't know, like mess with you, move things around in your house, like nightmares, just any number of things, you know, that could possibly be happening. So like I said, I know God's real. I know Allah Azza wa Jal is real, and I know that He is the most powerful and the most merciful. I know, there's no question in my mind. I feel it every day, and because I feel that, even in my worst moments, I know that they can do nothing to me, you know. And even if I was inconvenienced by some kind of crazy thing that happened involving them at some point, like at the end of the day, without Allah Azza wa Jal's permission, like, you can't touch me, you can't do anything to me, you know. So that's how I feel about that. Okay, let's go back just a bit.
The jinn have certain abilities which may appear to us to be supernatural. And this is where we start to delve into the realm of the paranormal a little bit. And that is that the jinn clearly have abilities that to us appear to be supernatural. And this is where you get sort of the supernatural and the paranormal, and, you know, the lights flick on and off and the doors open and the windows open, there's nobody there. The jinn do have abilities that seem to us to be supernatural. But I want to actually get you away from thinking in this way. I want you to actually stop thinking of the jinn as all-powerful, supernatural, incredible beings. At the end of the day, when you see many different animals and they have an ability that you don't have, you know, you see the greatness of Allah and the creation of Allah, but it doesn't surprise you. When I tell you birds fly through the sky, you don't get nightmares for 3-4 days. When I tell you that fish swim to the depths of the sea, you know, it doesn't terrify you. So you shouldn't be surprised that there is a creation from the creation of Allah that is able to do these things. You know, some of them are able to fly, but the birds can fly, so that's no big deal. Some of them are able to sort of take different forms, and that's something that is, you know, different for us. But again, it's simply what Allah has given them the ability to do. And we see certain animals that are able to change their color, able to change their shape to a certain degree, that are able to camouflage themselves. And again, this is something from the creation of Allah, and it makes us recognize the greatness of God and the creation of God. But it doesn't necessarily terrify us, and it doesn't make us fall into, you know, paranoia and various other things. So we should be very careful with the jinn, that when it comes to the jinn, we recognize they are simply a creation from the creation of Allah. Just like the other creation that Allah has created, They have some things that they can do that we can't do, and there are some things that we can do that they can't do. Understand that the jinn do not deserve to be feared. And as soon as you show them fear, they will take maximum advantage of the fear that you show them. As soon as you start to show them fear, they will play with you, they will pull out all the tricks. I'm talking about the windows will open, the lights will go on and off, human beings start appearing left, right and center, things start floating, knives start flying, pots and pans start going across the room. This is when you show them fear. When you don't show them fear, when you show them that you understand that they are simply a created being, you know, if they throw a pan across the room, I'd be tempted to pick the pan up and throw it back and say, you can throw the pan, I can throw the pan. As soon as you do this, they will stop messing around, generally, and they will stop causing you, you know, these kind of creepy paranormal type things that happen.
Okay, so it sounds like what he's saying there, if you were in that situation and you recognized what it was, in a sense, basically all you would need to do is stand up to that bully. It's that same concept of just having absolutely no fear. That seems like that is the way, you know, and to just recognize it's another creation of Allah Azza wa Jal that has limits. And, you know, we can't see them, but we can't see atoms either, but we know they're there. Yeah, okay. This is, I love this series because when I first started to learn about the jinn, or just even the term, I didn't know really what to expect and how in-depth it was. And, you know, based off of some of the comments that you guys have left, I mean, I could see that it could potentially take years to know everything about jinn, maybe even longer than that. So it's incredibly interesting, but I think we're getting the right idea and the right value so far from these videos on how to treat that situation, you know? Okay, let's go ahead and finish up this video.
As soon as you do this, they will stop messing around, generally, and they will stop causing you, you know, these kind of creepy paranormal type things that happen. Generally, they happen when people give them more respect than they deserve. They are intelligent beings at the end of the day. They have an ability to think. And therefore, when they see that you're terrified and scared of them, they are going to play on that. They're going to play pranks with you. They're going to joke with you. They're going to cause you all of these various paranormal experiences and these various sort of things that happen, haunted houses and all the rest. And in general, I have to say that since I've started doing ruqya, I get very little of these kind of paranormal crazy things going on. Every now and again, you know, I might get one person in 50 levitate off the ground. In general, most people don't. But the reason is that when you don't show them that.
Okay, when he was saying I get people and 1 out of 50 levitates off the ground, so is the gentleman speaking, is he a Muslim exorcist? I'm not sure of the Arabic name for that. Is that what he's talking about? And if he is, I don't know if it would be appropriate to film something like that, but are there any that you guys know of, if it's appropriate to do so, like to watch a legit exorcism of a jinn? If you guys could let me know, I think that would be interesting for sure, you know. Okay, yeah, let's go back a bit.
Now and again, you know, I might get one person in 50 levitate off the ground. In general, most people don't. But the reason is that when you don't show them that fear and you don't show them that, you know, reverence, then they don't cause you as many problems. So we want people to stop fearing the jinn as though they are these all-powerful spirits that can touch you from anywhere. Because this is going to take a person outside of Islam. When you fear them like God deserves to be feared, like Allah deserves to be feared, then you're going to end up leaving Islam. You're going to end up making a partner with Allah.
Okay. All right, we're getting deeper and deeper into this. That was fantastic. I'm super curious about what he meant by the 1 in 50 people levitating. That's if that is the case and he's seen that in person, you know, that's got to be a very, I don't know, surreal experience. I don't even know what word to use for something like that, you know? Okay, yeah, we're gonna do one more video. Let me get that one set up here. Okay. Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, this is almost 12.5 minutes long. That's awesome. And again, we're still in the Jinn series, and this is the reality of Jinn possession. Okay, let's the gentleman was alluding to that in the last video, I believe, so I guess we're about to get a bit more of an explanation of that.
Now we come to talk about jinn possession. I guess the easiest way to explain this to you is we're talking about a voluntary act by one of the jinn. We're not talking about the jinn being commissioned by somebody to attack someone. We're not talking about the jinn being forced to attack somebody. We are talking about a jinni voluntarily of his or her own accord attacking a person. And there are many, many proofs of this. And again, one of the most common things that I hear is people who say there's no evidence that the jinn possess people, and that all of this is mental illness and so on and so forth. Say to him, no problem. Do you believe in the jinn? They say, yes, we believe in the jinn. Because you know the jinn are mentioned in the Quran, yes. And you believe that the jinn are a type of creation, yes. And you believe that the jinn are intelligent, yes. And you believe that the jinn have had interaction with human beings, and this interaction has led them both to transgression and tyranny? Yes. Why don't you believe the jinn possess people? The answer will come back, and there is no other answer. The only answer will come back is that my mind cannot comprehend it. Either they'll say, I don't believe in the jinn at all, in which case they have left Islam if they have been proven to them that they understand the jinn are mentioned in the Quran, and their doubts are cleared on that issue, and they continue to say there are no such thing as the jinn, then they've disbelieved in the Quran. But there are many people who say we believe in the jinn, but we don't believe the jinn possess people. And we say, what is your evidence? They just say the only thing they have after everything is, it doesn't make sense to me. And that's not an evidence in Islam. Rather, if we look at some of the evidence, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who devour riba will not stand on the day of resurrection except like the standing of a person who is touched by the shaitan, possessed by the shaitan, leading him to insanity. And the word mas here is the word used for jinn possession. They are possessed by the shaitan, leading them into insanity. The Prophet ﷺ said, the shaitan flows through the son of Adam as his blood flows. And in a number of ahadith, the Prophet ﷺ removed the jinn from the bodies of people. And he would come to a person and strike him on his chest or on his back and say, leave, O enemy of Allah, and I am the messenger of Allah. Furthermore, it's not just the Quran and the Sunnah and the consensus of the Muslims, but the eyes and the ears and the senses, you see it every single day, in a way that can't be explained by mental illness, and we'll talk about this probably a little bit more tomorrow. When might a person be vulnerable to jinn possession? A person perhaps might be at their most vulnerable to jinn possession at times when they forget Allah. And there are a number of evidences for this. The first is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, وَمَنْ يَعِشْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ الرَّحْمَنِ نُقَيِّضْ لَهُ شَيْطَانًا فَهُوَ لَهُ قَرِينٌ. Whoever turns away and lives without the remembrance of Allah, we assign for them a shaitan that will accompany them. So this tells us what? That when you're far away from the remembrance of Allah, you are vulnerable to being afflicted by the shaitan. There is another, perhaps even clearer evidence, and that is the statement of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا إِذَا مَسَّهُمْ طَائِفٌ مِّنَ الشَّيْطَانِ تَذَكَّرُوا فَإِذَا هُمْ مُبْصِرُونَ. Those people who are obedient to Allah, when they are afflicted by something from the shaitan, a touch or a whisper, they remember Allah and then they can see clearly. So the remembrance of Allah pushes away the shaitan, and not remembering Allah draws the shaitan near to you. We also have an evidence from the Sunnah that a person is vulnerable in places that are particularly unclean or isolated. When you go to a new place, you say, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. I seek refuge with the perfect words of Allah from the evil that He has created, and no evil will touch you in that place. So you're in somewhere that's particularly isolated and deserted, or you end up in a new place, you drive into a new city, you climb out of your car, you say these words, nothing will afflict you.
Okay, I just wanted to touch on something here. In my worst moments in my life, when I was dealing with, a significant alcohol problem for somewhere in the range of 6 to 7 years, I was cognizant, that Allah Azza wa Jal existed, even though at times I might think that He didn't, because I don't know, feeling sorry for myself, hating the world, hating myself. You have these self-pity thoughts that are useless, essentially, but in my heart, I always knew that Allah Azza wa Jal was real. And but in those dark years of isolation, a lot of it I was in isolation. Like, I still went to work, I still held my job, but my routine basically when I would get home is I would just start drinking beer, and then I'd take a shower and pass out and wake up, go to work, and just do the same thing. And I did that for years and years, and when I think about that, when I was in that state, I wasn't like cleaning up like my room or making my bed and just stuff like that, and to some degree being nasty. And it's like when you get in that dark place, with alcohol and self-pity and things like that, you don't take care of yourself, and I remember so many times, maybe even on a daily basis, that feeling of like of just intense emptiness, being like so far away from Allah, and just like terrible thoughts whispers entering my head like all the time, just everything I would think of was just negative, and self-pity and just ignorance, and laziness and slothfulness. And I could give you 1,000 reasons how I got to that place, but they're all irrelevant. At the end of the day, I still chose to do that and to be weak in that regard. So everything he's saying, like I know it's true, because I've felt that feeling before of like absolute darkness, and it's a sick feeling. Your entire perspective of your body, your mind, your soul, of the entire world is negative. Like, you don't look forward to anything. You don't want to really talk to people at all unless they're also alcoholics. And it's just, you live in a constant negative state. It's sad, man. Okay, let's get back into this.
So you're in somewhere that's particularly isolated and deserted, or you end up in a new place, you drive into a new city, you climb out of your car, you say these words, nothing will afflict you. Reasons why possession occurs. Now I'm talking, why would the jinn possess somebody without being commanded or contracted to do so by a magician? The first is in order to further the aims of the shaitan. So for example, a person already has magic done to them. At this point, we've seen many cases where there are jinn that will join in and possess the person on top of the jinn that were sent by the magician. And they are simply there to help support and further the aims of the shaitan. So jinn possession that is there to further the aims of the shaitan. Secondly, if a person has harmed the jinn or their family, and again we see this many times, not so much in these days, but you did see it a lot when people would spend more time in the areas that are known to be inhabited by the jinn, and they would go out into the countryside and into the desert for long periods of time, and often they would live there, and sometimes they would do things that were un-Islamic that would lead them to harming the jinn. They may harm some of their children or harm some of them by pouring boiling oil on them, pouring boiling water on them. If you're out, people used to do this when there wasn't a good drainage system, is people would pour things out, go out in the garden and pour boiling oil, out in the garden, or pour boiling water out of the window and things like this. People have been possessed by these things if they've afflicted the jinn. And I think there's an overwhelming body of evidence that the jinn can be harmed by some of the things that harm human beings. We now come on to the topic of common signs of jinn possession. There are many signs of jinn possession, and the most important thing to emphasize to you in this regard is that they are shared with many other illnesses and problems. And so there is no guarantee that everyone who displays these symptoms is possessed by a jinn. I'll give you a simple example that everyone can understand. You come to the doctor, your local GP, You say to him that I have a headache. You might need glasses. You might not have slept the night before. You might have a brain tumor. Could be anything, from the most insignificant thing to the most severe thing. And he will diagnose you according to other symptoms that you have, ask you about other things, and come to a conclusion about what is actually wrong. Likewise, it would be a huge mistake for somebody to take these signs of jinn possession and to guarantee that everyone who displays them has a problem with the jinn. From the common signs of possession are sudden, rapid changes in personality, personality disorders, and split personality. Many times the Quran talks about insanity in a completely different context to the jinn. So this affirms that there are medical disorders that affect a person's mental state. However, it would also be a huge mistake to discount the role of the jinn in medical psychiatric disorders.
Okay, this is something I've been thinking about too. I drive around a lot at work, going to different job sites, and I'm oftentimes in a bit rougher areas. And, you'll see homeless people or people that you assume probably have schizophrenia that are clearly, in their minds, it looks like they're talking to someone else, or they're yelling and screaming. Like I've seen guys, they had like one of those wooden poles from a closet, and he was like, like doing like Ninja Turtle stuff. I can't remember the one with the bow staff, Donatello. He was like doing that stuff against one of the signs on the roads, or guys out there doing backflips, and I saw these two homeless people getting in a fight. And I pulled over to try to like yell at them to make them stop. It was like right in the beginning of COVID, and they didn't stop when I said anything, but they stopped not long after that, and then they started hugging each other, and it was really bizarre, but they were also like they didn't even, another car pulled over and was yelling too, like, hey, y'all knock that off, break it up. And they didn't even acknowledge our existence. Never once did they look at our cars or make eye contact, and they were in their own world, and as he said, I mean, for sure there could be medical reasons for that, but sometimes I wonder if there's people like that and they can actually see the unseen. Well, I guess that doesn't make sense. I guess no one can see the unseen, right? I think that is a fact that we have already learned. So maybe they are crazy, but I wonder, if someone was actually possessed by a jinn, perhaps to some degree, could they maybe see other jinn? And they're talking to them, like when you see like someone who looks crazy out in the street. I don't know. We've got a long way to go in this series, so perhaps that question will be answered. But okay, let's get back into this.
However, it would also be a huge mistake to discount the role of the jinn in medical psychiatric disorders. Many people have psychiatric problems. Many of them are afflicted by the jinn. And many of them, subhanallah, we have recited upon, and they have got better in a way that could not be conceived by modern medicine. I.e., the psychiatrist says to them, there is no cure for what you have. I can only suppress the symptoms. And you treat them with the Quran for a week, and they're cured and they no longer need their medication. Also from these symptoms are a change in facial structure or voice, and you really have to see this to appreciate it. When a person's entire face, an entire voice completely twists and changes. In fact, you may hear a woman talking in the voice of a man, man talking in the voice of a woman, or the voice of a child, a complete twist of the face so that you no longer can see the person in the way that they normally are. It looks like a totally different person. Sudden displays of extreme emotion, often at inappropriate times, like laughing when everyone is crying, crying when everyone is laughing. Complaints of crawling ants, like feeling like ants crawling up and down the body, heat in the body, something in the throat or in the stomach, a sudden change in ability such as being able to speak another language without any experience, severe and repeating nightmares, sleep problems like sleep paralysis, feeling like something is holding you down, sleepwalking, hallucinations, and I've experienced a jinn hallucination. It's not very nice. I woke up in India with a rather large needle driven through my forearm, and it was under the skin, and I woke up, I switched my phone off, I sat up, it was quite clearly in my arm, and I began to pull it out of my arm, and as I was pulling it out of my arm, it was about as thick as a biro pen, and I was pulling it out of my arm. the blood was appearing on the wall of the hotel room. Like, I'm looking at my arm and there's no blood. I'm looking at the hotel wall and there's blood on the wall. And I'm thinking, that's weird. And then I look, and I said, I don't remember, I said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, or whatever I said, and I, shook my head and it's gone. No wound, no pain. And it was very painful pulling it out. There was no wound, no pain, no blood on the wall, nothing. So hallucinations, definitely.
Okay, I wanted to touch on one more thing. I think it was the last few Jinn videos we did. And I had talked about how there was 2 times where I can recall that I had sleep paralysis. One was at an apartment that I used to live in, and the other one was at my aunt's house. And in both times, I had excessive alcohol the night before, maybe slept like 5-ish, 4-ish hours, somewhere around there. Both times it was essentially identical. Like I would be awake, my eyes would be open, but I couldn't move my body at all. And it was 2 sensations. One, the one in my apartment, I didn't see anything, but it felt like a hand had grabbed the blankets at the foot of my bed and was like slowly pulling them down my body. And then the other one at my aunt's house, I did see something. It was the same thing. I was totally paralyzed. I could see the room perfectly. I felt like I was awake. And then I saw a figure that was probably around 8 feet tall, very slender, like an all black, almost like some kind of weird black dress, that was grabbing my ankle and trying to pull me off the bed. I don't think I was actually moving, but that was the sensation that I felt. Yeah, and then that was the 2 times that happened to me, and I had looked all over Google for that, and I learned the term sleep paralysis, and I was okay, that makes sense. I've been drinking alcohol as well, not living a healthy lifestyle, not getting good sleep, nothing. It makes sense that something like that, medically speaking, could happen. So I'm certainly not claiming that that was Jinn. I don't know, but that did happen to me, and it would not surprise me if many, millions of other people's, hundreds of thousands, however many, I don't know, have had experiences like that too, and it's definitely really bizarre when that happens. And prior to that happening, I knew nothing about Islam or Jinn, so that never entered my mind. I was just trying to find some kind of, like medical explanation on why that happened. But I mean, perhaps maybe that is what it was. I don't know. But yeah, okay, let me go back just a bit here.
It's gone. No wound, no pain. And it was very painful pulling it out. There was no wound, no pain, no blood on the wall, nothing. So hallucinations, definitely. Particularly people see clouds, see figures, things like that. Liking to be in places associated with the jinn. Like liking to be in places of filth, liking to be in places of isolation. Extreme increased physical strength. So, I'll give you an example. We had a rather interesting case in Sunderland. I didn't deal with this one personally, but it was very interesting. And this was that we had a case of some police being called to a house and running away. And that's not normal, but they saw something that literally terrified them. And they called one of the brothers who was previously a paranormal investigator. And there's basically this old lady, and she has literally flipped a big wooden bed completely upside down. She's flipped all of her furniture completely upside down. The big sofa that 2 men take to carry, she's just flipped it upside down. And she sat there, sort of on her own, surrounded by this entire mess in the house. And I believe they actually saw her flipping the furniture over. That is an example of extreme increased physical strength that you wouldn't expect to see from somebody of that regard.
Oh. I'll tell you what, I'm super interested. Let's see. Let's go ahead and do one more. Let's see how long it is. Okay, it's only 7.5 minutes. Yeah, we definitely got to do another one. So I'm taking based off of what he was saying towards the end of the video that he is factually a Muslim exorcist. Again, I'm not sure what the term is for that. That's extremely interesting, and as he was narrating that, I could see how, if you walk into a situation like that, and an old lady that's easily flipping over furniture like that, and and then it towards the end of it, she just sits down on the floor like amongst the mess that she created. I could see how that could be, very disturbing for many people. Okay. And the title of this one, How Iblis Became Satan, Birth of the Devil. Okay, all right, let's go.
How this all started is a really interesting story. How did we get here? I mean, this story that happened, this primal story, is still going on. It's still being played out again and again. And it's in Surah Al-A'raf here. The story is a story about two creatures, Adam and Iblis. The dominant opinion is that he was a jinn, but he was allowed into the court of the angels, this angelic court. Now, these angels were told by God to bow down to Adam. And that sujood is not a prostration. It's not actually putting your head on the ground. It was a type of ta'zeem, which was more like an inhina. It was bowing. So Iblis is told to bow down. All of them did it, except Iblis. What has hindered you from not falling prostrate? إِذْ أَمَرْتُكَ, because I told you to do this. قَالَ أَنَا خَيْرٌ مِّنْهُ, I'm better than him, which is a very interesting statement, because some of the ulama say this is the first wrong action ever. And it's a belief of superiority. It's a belief of superiority of another creature. So he said, I'm better than him. And then, خَلَقْتَنِي مِن نَارٍ. Then he gives the reason. This is his logic of why he is superior. You created me from fire, وَخَلَقْتُهُ مِن طِينٍ. And you created him from earth and water. I'm fire and air, he's earth and water. I'm better than him. What was the superiority here? What superiority did he see? Material, right? It's medda. He's looking at the actual substance of what we are made of. Now, what is unique about Iblis and Adam? Both Iblis and Adam, they have this conscious ruh. They have this conscious knowledge of God that other creatures don't have, whether they're made of fire, earth, water, whatever they're made of. So Iblis was looking at the outward of the situation and he's saying, I'm better than him. Why are you making me bow down to somebody that I'm better than? This is his logic. And there's a lot of people that fall into that type of reasoning in the world, and it causes immense problems in the world. قَالَ فَأَهْبِطْ, then go down. Now this is a command to him. مِنْهَا فَمَا يَكُونُ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَبَّرْ فِيهَا. It is not for thee to show pride here. In other words, you're in the divine presence. This isn't the place for pride. If you're aware of God, you can't be in a state of pride. And therefore, he was cast out of this presence, because the two can't go together. And then he says, فَخْرُجْ إِنَّكَ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. Get out of here, because you are the saghir. You're not better, you're worse. You're the humiliated one because of your pride. Because of your pride, you've put yourself under the thing that you thought you were over. So the actual thinking that you were over this other creature has put you under that creature by default. So go out. His kufr is called kufr al-isyan. It's the disbelief of disobedience. And then he says, قَالَ أَنظُرْنِي إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ. Give me some reprieve. قَالَ إِنَّكَ مِنَ الْمُنظَرِينَ. You've got this reprieve. قَالَ فَبِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. This is really key here. بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, now, because you led me astray. Right? So he's blaming, now he blames Allah. This is the beauty of Iblis. Look at this foolish intellect. First, he says, why didn't you do it? And he says, because I can't do that, I'm better than him. Then he says, بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي, you made me go astray by telling me to do it in the first place. Because I couldn't do it, you said do it. And so it's your fault. It's not my fault, it's your fault. See, that's, he's blaming God for his problems. بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأَقْعُدَنَّ لَهُمْ صِرَاطَكَ الْمُسْتَقِيمَ. I will now lurk in ambush for them. In other words, these humans. Because you told me to do this thing. So it's both of your faults. You told me to do something that I couldn't do. And the reason I couldn't do it is because he wasn't worthy of it. So he's got two adversaries here. He's angry at God and he's angry at Adam. And then he says, ثُمَّ لَأَتِيَنَّهُمْ مِنْ بَيْنِ أَيْدِيهِمْ. And I will come upon them from before them, وَمِنْ خَلْفِهِمْ, and behind them, وَعَنْ أَيْمَانِهِمْ, and to their rights, وَعَنْ شَمَائِلِهِمْ, and to their lefts, وَلَا تَجِدُ أَكْثَرَهُمْ شَاكِرِينَ. And you will not find most of them filled with gratitude. So this is important too, because what Iblis has set out to do now is show that they're ingrates. That's what he wants to do. He wants to show God that you made a mistake, you shouldn't have made him the Khalifa, the Caliph on earth, and you're going to see that they're not going to be grateful for what you've given them in the first place. And so it's very interesting, this story, because what it's telling us is that if you place God in his right position and you place yourself in your right position, which is that you see God over you and you're under, in prostration, in this state of submission, shaitan has no access. When does shaitan flee according to the hadith? When you're in sajda. Because he can't bear that. Humility before God. And then Allah again, قَالَ خُرُجْ مِنْهَا مَذْءُومًا مَدْحُورًا. He banished him again, degraded, banished. And then he says that whoever follows you, لَمَنْ تَبِعَكَ مِنْهُمْ لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنْكُمْ.
Okay, I know the video is almost over. I just want to say this before I lose that thought. That was a great point that the gentleman, the speaker, made there, is when so Iblis, he did not want to prostrate or bow, or excuse me, bow before Adam, and so that makes sense that while you're in prayer, you're not bowing, and you're actually praying, like basically your head on the floor, you're prostrating before God, and so that's even more intense than a bow. And so for Iblis to see that, that surely must remind him of his foolishness, because I mean, he knows how at the very end, when everything is said and done, he knows how this ends, and so that must sting incredibly bad to know that it didn't have to be this way, but he chose the route that he chose. And so when he sees a Muslim praying like that, surely that has to come back to him, of how much of a fool that he was to do that, to disobey Allah. Okay, all right, let's finish this one up real quick. See, there we go.
Banished him again, degraded, banished. And then he says that whoever follows you, لَمَنْ تَبِعَكَ مِنْهُمْ لَأَمْلَأَنَّ جَهَنَّمَ مِنْكُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I'm going to fill Jahannam with them. Those people that follow you, you're their imam, and you're headed to that place, so you're going to take them with you. So if you take him as an imam, that's where he's taking you.
So Allah gave him the ability to go into our bodies and play with our minds, to be able to so inconspicuously sound in our mind as if it is our own deep thoughts, but it is actually shaitan saying his worst and evil words into our mind, whispering into our ears. And then shaitan said,
oh, okay. Yeah, that was a great, I think we did 3 or 4 videos. I think it was 4 there. That was fantastic, and I can't wait to start up this series again very soon, within the next few days, I'm sure. I'm going to have to see what time it is. Unfortunately, I can't see my clock right now. I would love to do one more video tonight if I do have the time for it. I don't, man. The thing with these videos is, like, I'll watch them, and then for like 2 or 3 days, it's like that's all that's running through my head. Every time I have a second where I don't have to be thinking about a specific task, or I'm not spending time with my wife, it's like that's where my mind always returns to, is the things that we're learning about Islam. And recently it's been the jinn, and it's just incredible. If we look at, it was between 300,000 and 1 million pages, roughly, give or take a bit, written about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then we look at you know, the jinn, I know it would take years to learn every facet of it, you know what I mean? It takes years and years to learn every to learn the Quran like correctly to like the maximum benefit, I guess, you know. It would take a lifetime, and even then you still wouldn't even be close to like knowing everything that is Islamic, you know what I mean? It's just wild, but I love it. You know, I always wanted to like write like a huge long book. I know a lot of you guys don't really watch movies, but if you have that movie, The Never Ending Story, it came out like in the early 80s. That was like a childhood film that me and my brother would watch a lot. And there was a book in there, and it's like, I don't know, it's like this thick or something, and it has like this like huge like leather like case on the outside of it. And I was always thinking to myself, man, I wish I could find a really great book that was huge like that would take me like a year to read, you know. And I don't say this lightly or jokingly or to compare Islam obviously to something that would be silly like that, but in Islam you find that thing, exactly what I was talking about, is there's so much information, and it's impossible to learn it all, even in a full lifetime of, you know, if I lived to be 120 years up to my last second, I would still be learning, because it's just not possible, you know. And I like that thought. It's really comforting to me, because I don't know, it feels correct. Like you should be on a path like that of never ending learning, going in the right direction, you know, following the command of Allah Azza wa Jal. It just makes sense to me, you know, and it makes life feel correct. It makes everything seem, all the pieces fit together, you know, like the lack of fear of death. And I don't mean, you know, you should tempt fate or tempt, you know, dangerous situations or anything like that. But if it happens, you know, and your heart and your love and obedience to Allah Azza wa Jal is absolute, like there's nothing for you to fear, you know. None of us want to have a painful death. We fear pain or torture or drowning or burning, you know, any various things that would be excruciatingly painful and sad and terrifying. You know, none of us want that. But you know, I mean, that's only short-lived, you know. To us 100 years is a long time, you know, but it's really nothing in the grand scheme of things of eternity. It's not even a millisecond compared to eternity, you know. So I don't know. I saw if I see it pop up again, I would like to share it. It was a short that popped up on my feed, and the gentleman, he was clearly Muslim in the video. He was in the hospital. He was probably maybe in his 40s, it looked like. And he appeared to be passing away within moments. And he said something like, it was as Allah Azza wa Jal promised. And I think that perhaps he saw the angels or something like that. But it was when I saw it, it just it really hit me, you know, to see someone with absolute faith like that. And to me, the video, it looked like absolute certainty, you know what I mean? Like that it was literally as Allah Azza wa Jal promised, you know. So I know that sometimes people can make fake videos to try to get views and stuff like that. It didn't come across that way to me, but if I come across it again, I'll share it on my channel and you guys can look at it. And you know, and I don't say that, I don't want to put it on there to be morbid or anything like that, but you know, if that is real, it's just further evidence that it is real, you know. And I don't know, it came across as real to me. But like I said, if I find that, I'll share that with you guys, because I felt like it was beneficial to me as a reminder, you know. But okay guys, yeah, I'm gonna see what time it is, and inshallah I will be back tonight with one more video. I'm really hoping that I can, and we'll see what happens.